We're live. Are you all able to see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, Lakshmi.
Okay, great. Those of us who are watching on YouTube, we'll get started in a couple of minutes. So we'll get started. We've started the broadcast. So we would like to welcome all of you to our third session today on Crafting Your Career in Science, the online series. Today's session will be on professional networking and also we will see the entrepreneurial journey of two entrepreneurs, the journey from ideation to implementation. We are simulcasting this event via YouTube live stream. We will share this link via the chat window if you're joining us on Zoom. So if you have any audio video difficulties, you also have the option of watching this via the YouTube live stream. You'll also find this live streaming on the homepage of the India Bioscience website, www.indiabioscience.org. Before we get started, we will briefly go over some housekeeping instructions which will help with your experience and participation. Whether you're using the web app version of Zoom or the downloaded desktop app, you'll see at the bottom of your screen three icons. Towards the left is the chat icon. Through this chat window, we would be sharing links relevant to the webinar. You will, however, not be able to interact with us via chat. But if you have any questions or you want to reach out to us, do use this icon to the right called the Q&A box. So when you click on it, the box opens, type in your questions. If you wish to, you could send in your questions anonymously as well. And also there will be designated portions in the webinar where the flow would open to Q&A. And if you wish to ask a question verbally, raise your virtual hand, that is the central icon, which turns green. So we would know that you want to ask a question, but wait, we would request you to wait for the designated time where the flow would open to Q&A. So you can interact with the speakers. All right, so with that, we'll begin with a brief disclaimer note. This knowledge broadcast session targets students and science professionals with an intent to increase the general awareness of good practices while navigating one's career path. While it will address some of the developmental aspects of navigating one's career, this session does not in any way aim to undermine or provide alternatives to the pursuit of scholarship in any field. In the first half of the discussion today, it will be based on some of the scholarly works on building networks, in addition to some practical tips gleaned from personal experiences. The session also does not aim to tell students which career path is best suited for them, but it hopes to facilitate and empower students to make well-informed choices for themselves. All right, so with that, so here's the IndiaBioscience team. I'm Lakshmi. I'll be your host this afternoon. Also joining me are my colleagues Smita and Shreya. And also behind the scenes, we have Manjula, who would be guiding you if you're watching us on YouTube. Also joining us is Nusrat Sanghamitra. She's the founder and CEO of CyCa OncoSolutions. She would be sharing her entrepreneurial journey in part 2 of this webinar. Alongside her is Nelson Vadassery. He's the co-founder and director of Sea6 Energy, who will also be sharing his career story along with Nusrat today. So we will begin, as we traditionally do, by getting to know you who have joined us today using an audience poll. So I'll launch this poll. So if you see this poll on your screens, please do take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you do, as well as what would be your top 3 career choices when you move up the next step in your career. So we'll take about 30 seconds for this audience poll. So we'll end the poll in about 5 seconds. Okay, so let me share the results. So majority of you are students, undergrads. We also have master's students. We have some educators. We have PhD students, as well as some researchers from academia and several other professionals as well. So the top most career choice for most of you is being a researcher in academia, followed by being an educator. A lot of you want to be science communicators, core facility managers, science policy advocates, entrepreneurs. A good portion of you are entrepreneurs. This session is for you. Also data analysts and others. So again, very heartening to see a very open-minded audience join us today. All right, so I'm going to stop the audience poll there. So we'll start with the topic of the day, professional networking. So networking, especially for some of us who have come from, for all of us, in fact, who have come from academia, may be something that we may naturally tend to shy away from. And we're hoping to make a case today that networking is actually cultivable and can actually be fun. So let's begin by defining for ourselves what we mean by professional networking. So what the definition that we would like to identify with is that it's a deliberate activity. By deliberate, we mean that it requires some bit of self-effort, and it helps build not only professional relationships, but also maintain these and reinforce these and make sure that they are built or founded on the basis of trust and goodwill, and that they are diverse as well. So let's keep that as our operational definition for networking for today. Now, let's begin by maybe exploring why do we need to network at all? So because most of us may think we are pretty skilled otherwise. So here are a few reasons why it is worth investing in building a network. And the first of that is access to private information. So what do we mean by that? In this day and age where public information is rampant, it's very easy to be misinformed. And the information overload that's out there also makes it harder to distill what is really useful. So by private information, we mean it could be what an interviewer looks for in a candidate, or even a position that's maybe, say, not advertised in the public domain. But when you get information like this, of course, it depends upon how much trust exists in the relationship. And also, when you have access to such private information, it gives you a unique advantage or a competitive advantage over others who rely just on public information, which is practically available to all in this day and age of internet. Now, the second advantage to networking is access to diverse skill sets. In addition to trust, when we build a network that's focused on diversity, by which we mean, cultivating acquaintances from different backgrounds, cultures, skill sets, even personality types, it can help open us up to diverse perspectives. It can hone our creativity and really make us well-rounded professionals overall. And the third advantage is empowerment. Your network, we think, can also be empowering. Knowing the right people at the right time or having the right mentors can enable you to rise up to your utmost human potential. We'd like to take the example of Linus Pauling, who's a stellar scientist and a recipient of 2 Nobel Prizes, one in chemistry and one in peace. Again, even in the highest acknowledgement that he received, there's diversity. And he attributes a lot of his success to his capability of being an avid networker. And he's often quoted as saying, the way to get good ideas is to get a lot of ideas and throw away the bad ones. And again, a great way to get a lot of ideas is by widening your exposure, which of course is, as we saw, a very unique advantage of the practice of networking. Now that we know, and I hope we convinced you of some of the benefits of having a wide network, let's get started by demystifying networking, by breaking down the elements of a network and briefly discuss the science of networking. The central point of a network is, of course, you yourself, and each one of your contacts would be called a node in networking terms. And whenever you make a connection with another human being through a conversation, dialogue, or any exchange, you make a connection. And a group of connected individuals form a cluster or a clique. Your network will have several such clusters or cliques. And there might be people who belong to multiple clusters. In fact, they may be the people who link these clusters. For example, you have a colleague at work that introduces you to a yoga class or a book club. Now, this colleague is a part of your work cluster, your yoga cluster, and your book club. And because they interlink these diverse clusters, they are what we call informational brokers. And some of these informational brokers are extraordinarily evolved networkers, and they connect diverse clusters. And these people are often also willing to share their contacts. And we call these people super connectors. Now you might ask, hey, this is great. This is all great to know, but how do I apply this knowledge? Now, suppose if you are a networking novice, it would be useful to study your own network and identify if you have such informational brokers or super connectors as a part of your network. And this is a really good place to begin your journey in smart networking. Not only that, another key thing to keep in mind is the evolving nature of organizational structures. Traditionally, most organizations had a pyramidal or a hierarchical structure where power resided in the hands of top executives. Nowadays, the organizations are getting flatter and flatter, like pancakes or chapatis. And with these flatter systems, power is distributed where, and they reside in these informational brokers that we saw, because they have this extraordinary ability to synthesize different points of view by bringing together diverse groups of people. Now, in networking, there's also 2 types of networks. There's open and closed networks. Now, when you talk about closed networks, a very ready and an easy example to identify is maybe your family, or maybe you're part of a close network of trusted friends from school, high school, or a college that you can share almost anything. Now, open networks are those that you form when you make connections, say, for example, at a conference or a workshop, where you don't form deep bonds right away, but you could make quick friends and, with people across locations, disciplines, etc. Now, as you can tell, open networks are rich in diversity and closed networks are rich in trust. But in good teams, you would find a good mix of both trust and diversity. For example, in successful teams, trust exists within the team's structure, making it internally closed. At the same time, each team member is able to bring their unique perspectives, skills, and resources from their individual networks, making it externally open. So now that we are a little more aware of the nature of networks, we should spend a little time talking about some of the common pitfalls in networking. You know, one very common pitfall is called the self-similarity principle. You know, we all have a common tendency to associate based on similarities. And after all, like attracts like. When left to network, we naturally tend to connect with those people with whom we have much in common. And there's also another one called the proximity principle. We also tend to network with people whom we see again and again. This could be people within our office or laboratories that we almost see by default. Now, this is not to say that we need not be friendly with people, like-minded humans, or our workplace colleagues. But if we build a network just based on similarity and proximity, then the network tends to be more and more inbred, and it forms what's called echo chambers, which means our points of view and perspectives would be echoed by other members in the network. But this may seem comfortable in the short term, but in the long term, this could be very limiting, as this will not allow new perspectives, constructive feedback, or new ideas to flow in. And this will eventually undercut the network's diversity and creative potential. Now, what we're going to do, we take a pause here after hearing all this. Just take a moment to reflect on your own network using the principles that we just reviewed. And perhaps I could launch another audience poll. You'll see that in a moment. Okay, so if you see an audience poll, just take a moment to let us know what applies to you when you diagnose your own network. So we'll give about 30 seconds again for the responses. So about 75% of you have voted. So let's give about 5 seconds to wrap up. So let me end the poll and share the results. So a lot of you, 36% of you have said your network has scope to grow. Well, congratulations, that's a great first step to begin your journey. And a lot of you have said that your network has more trusted contacts than diversity. That's true, I think, for a lot of us as well. And some of you have indicated that your network has more diversity, more openness, and trusted contacts. Some of you have acknowledged that you tend to network with people just like yourselves. Again, you know, just that awareness is a great starting point. Some of you say that you have informational brokers in your network. That's great news. And some of you may be informational brokers yourself. You may have been instrumental in introducing people within your network to each other. And also 6% of you have super connectors in your network. Congratulations. That's great. So okay, so now that we've seen networking is a skill, let's explore a few effective habits to cultivate to progress on your journey in networking in this segment. So what we would like to do is we would like to propose a three-pronged approach to networking. One is build, expand, and actively manage. So in building, of course, we already saw you can build your network by using the proximity and similarity principles. Of course, you know, whoever you have access to, your mentor, colleagues, friends, and family. But when it comes to expanding, here's a great way to put yourselves out there is by participating in what we call as shared activities. Now, what are shared activities? It's those activities that bring together individuals of diverse backgrounds based on some common interest. And this common interest could be sports, it could be some hobby, it could be voluntary activities, it could be conferences or workshops. It gives you a chance to interact with people from diverse backgrounds, and also simultaneously provides access to diverse skill sets. They immediately also provide access to a large number of networks by connecting different clusters. So they help you expand as well as incorporate diversity. And another a great way to expand, of course, as we saw, is by connecting with informational brokers and super connectors in your network, which some of you have indicated you do have. The third way is to actively manage, and a lot of oftentimes we tend to ignore this, and actively managing your network is probably as important or even more important than the first two steps, which is building and expanding. And really it takes very simple things can go a long way in managing your network. Some effective habits to cultivate, which has worked for us, that we would like to share are these. For example, if you make the first connection with someone, it's a great idea to follow it up with maybe a thank you note. And LinkedIn, of course, is a great space for professional networking, to connect with them on LinkedIn when you make first contact. Now, if you happen to get to know people a little better, maybe you can invest in keeping in touch, and that's a great habit too. And great ways to do this is by maybe remembering to send a birthday wish or a season's greeting, and this can make a world of a difference in keeping relationships, even long distance ones, intact. And another great way, and I think this has also worked for me, is a great way to sustain a professional relationship when you meet someone that is intellectually stimulating, is to start a project or collaborate together. And that's a great way to sustain and maintain relationships in the long run. So these are the things. So what we want you to do is maybe by the end of the day today, take 10 minutes. Our team would share a worksheet with you. Take 10 minutes sometime today at leisure for yourselves and write 3 steps that you would take to build, expand, and maintain your network. Okay. And in doing so, remember that even baby steps are okay, but maybe just add a little bit of a consistency into it by setting aside 10 minutes in a week or a month to work on building, expanding, and maintaining your network. So that brings us to the presentation part of the first half of the webinar. So we will open to any questions at this point. So what I would also like to invite my colleagues Shreya and Smita to share a little bit about working has helped them in their professional journeys. Smita?
Thanks, Lakshmi. That was a very wonderful overview, and I hope that the audience would take really some important lessons from what you just presented. So coming to the question, I guess till I was studying or finishing my degree, I don't think I kind of knew about this term networking. I didn't know what it means. It's just that being a little outgoing person, I could connect and make friends with people little easily. But only later, when I got into my first job, second job, I started to realize that the broader your network is, easier it becomes for you to learn more, understand better, and get to know a lot of new things. And then I started, investing my time and energy to stay connected with people whom whom I would meet at any conference or meeting or online. I've maintained that, and this has really helped at every step. Not that I've taken advantage in a negative manner, but when you know really diverse kinds of people and your network is like an open, yet you have trusted connections, it becomes so much easier to move forward, you know, learn new things, and connect with another set of people. Also, it's not just your personal gain. You know, as time moved, I also realized that, you know, with whatever network I have, I could connect a lot of other people to my connections, and that has been very valuable and very satisfying as well at times, when, you know, someone else uh, could get benefit out of that connection. So yes, and personally, I really enjoy meeting new people and talking to them, and, you know, learning from their journeys. So, and like, I can share here, Nusrat has been I knew Nusrat from my PhD days. I guess for years we were not in touch, but when I got to know about the work she's doing, it became so much easier because we knew each other during our PhD days and we could connect back. So yeah, Lakshmi, I guess that's what I would share to your question.
Thank you, Smita, for sharing your experience. I mean, we all know that you're quite savvy at networking, and I've learned a lot of networking lessons myself, watching you interact with people. Some questions have come from our attendees. You know, an anonymous attendee asks, I'm really clueless on how to start my network. Your suggestions, please. We covered these things, and I think this worksheet would, help you. We'll share some of the materials that we have presented with you. Maybe just go through that and just take some time for yourself and write some steps for yourself. What you would do. Some easy ways to do. Start your journey in networking is by diagnosing your network, identifying which clusters you're a part of. Do you have informational brokers and super connectors? And also start getting active on professional networking platforms like LinkedIn, and start cultivating a few good habits that we talked about, which is connecting with people, talking to people about your work, and following up and keeping in touch. Is there anything that you want to add, Shreya? Or
Yeah, one thing I would like to add is the question is about starting your network, and very often you already have a network that you are not aware of. If you are in grad school, if you are even in a college, you have professors, you have alumni, you have seniors, juniors, you have your family networks, you have friends from clubs you might belong to. All of them are already part of your network. So one important step is to realize the richness or even the diversity of the network you already have. So don't think of it as this major step that I have to take. It's something you have already been doing just by virtue of being human. We are now inviting you to be more deliberate about it, and maybe taking steps, as Lakshmi said, to diagnose and build strategies and expand.
right, I do agree. So one other question is, ma'am, how do we network with people who aren't like-minded in the first place? So very, very valid question. A lot of us have this tendency to associate with like-minded people, but from my experience, what I would share is when I started doing, for example, certain voluntary activities, there's one common thing that we all wanted to volunteer, but in that volunteer group, I found that people had so many diverse interests, and I sort of, by interacting with them, I wasn't into certain things, certain kinds of music, but just by being in touch with someone who I had only one thing in common, which we both liked to volunteer, but I also learned a different type of music which I did not like listen to before. So I think we explore different aspects to our personalities while making friends, which is really what networking is all about. And so there's no way two people can be like-minded on every aspect, right? So that's my question. So my answer to that, my take on that. uh, what about people who are towards the introvert side? Really, that's really the kind of an audience that we hope to address today, because all of us are also introverts. I am one. Shreya also always says that she is a natural introvert. most of us academics tend to be introverts, but that's really what we wanted to say, is that networking is cultivable, and perhaps when it is done in using some good practices and good habits, maybe it can be fun. So it's something that you could try out and maybe challenge yourself to do. Okay. Right. So okay. Grow my career. Let's say one more question. While networking with known people, how to maintain professionalism? Um, are there any difference to that and maintaining those relationships separately, that is on the outside the professional realm? Smita, maybe you could address this.
I guess if you'll ask my personal view, I would say that, any person, regardless of, known or unknown, you meet and you interact, that interaction has to be a professional interaction. And so it should not be that, this is a known person and you take this person for granted. That should not be your approach. And don't be judgmental also. This is something to the previous question. I guess one need not be judgmental about the other person. You are interacting with this person for either a reason or there is no reason, and keep that interaction just professional, regardless of, this person really well or you do not know and you're meeting for the first time. My suggestion is just be a professional and maintain a very open, warm interaction, without any bias associated with it.
Yeah. And I also want to add that, sometimes, friendships and deeper bonds take time to develop. And you can keep your interactions civil, professional, and friendly, and you'll see, certain friendships and relationships endure. And trust is something that builds over time. Diversity is something that you can quickly encounter. So I would say time distinguishes those professionals which will become deeper bonds and friendships. Okay. Uh, Okay, here's an interesting question. Maybe we'll just stop here with one last question. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm up to the level of others to communicate to. How do we overcome this? You're not alone in feeling this way, and I think this is when you really need to maybe challenge yourself to put yourself out there, and perhaps if you just do it once and successfully, you'll just feel so good about it and happy about it, and maybe that's one way to build your confidence, that it's actually really, really easy, and it's no big deal. Okay. So thank you for all your questions. We will move to the second part of this segment. I would invite my colleague Shreya to moderate this. Shreya.
Thank you, Lakshmi. That was a very informative and highly engaging session on networking, and I hope our audience will take away some lessons that they can apply directly in their professional lives. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Nusrat. Nusrat is a chemist by training with a fascination for biology. She started her research journey with a mission to find a better anti-cancer drug with fewer side effects. After her PhD and postdoc, Nusrat founded CyCa OncoSolutions, which is a company to translate her ideas and research from bench to the bedside. Through our CyCa OncoSolutions, she also hopes to make an impact in oncology and to make a significant contribution to the global fight against cancer. Nusrat is committed to making a difference in people's lives by her scientific and personal endeavors. So over to you, Nusrat, for the next segment of this webinar. If you could share your slides, Nusrat.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yes, Nusrat, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Shreya, and thanks for the whole India Bioscience team for giving me this opportunity to share my journey. And hi, everybody, all the young listeners over here. As sorry, as we are as just a moment before. Both Lakshmi, Smita, and Shreya talked about networking, how important it is. After this session, I'm sharing about entrepreneurship of my entrepreneurship journey and how networking has helped in some ways. I will address that question at some point during my talk. So as a journey, whenever I look back my journey, I just remember my trip to Sydney. This is a cliff. I had walked in this cliff in Sydney Blue Mountain. As you see the steps here, you only see the first few steps. After that, it's just a dense forest, and you don't know what it is inside. And whenever I look back, wherever I have reached now, I feel the beginning was just like this, very simple steps with everything unknown, what it is going to be. But what took me through is the goal that I was looking for, the goal where I wanted to arrive. And that was defined maybe by certain circumstances, certain decisions that I took in different phases. And the beginning was when I joined ISC in 99 for my PhD. That's when my scientific journey started. But the real beginning was when my dad got diagnosed with cancer in that year in 2000. And that's when I think I never looked back from that time onwards. It was a hard time. Every night when I was sleeping, I was afraid that I may not see him next day. But I didn't take uh, this difficult time as a setback. Rather, I drew inspiration from that. I got encouragement from that to define the goal of my life, that I want to make cancer drugs better and safer. And that's when the problem that I am solving today as an entrepreneur was defined, I think, almost 20 years back. So, yeah, so when I started as a chemist because I was trained, my master's training was in chemistry. So I started synthesizing a lot of metal complexes. I thought I'm going to make a better drug, which is more cheaper, which is more uh, less, which has less side effect. But unfortunately, what happens, as I think many of you would be knowing, we keep synthesizing a lot of drugs, and most of them show really, really great activity in the cell line cell model in the lab, but they don't reach the market. They're most often they're very, very toxic. And that was very disheartening for me during my PhD. So I decided to change my research field because I wanted to understand how drugs work. And so I shifted to protein engineering. I wanted to understand what proteins are. So I kept switching my research field from chemistry to cell biology over the period of a few years with my postdoc fellowships in TIFR, in Leiden, in Oxford, and in Kyoto. And during this time, when I was in Kyoto, out of serendipity, I discovered a new engineered protein that goes through the cell membrane. And that's when I thought, okay, this is what I was looking for. Because I felt that like maybe we have a lot of drugs, but we are not able to take them into the target site quite effectively. So this whole journey, you might say that why I'm talking about the whole thing. You don't have to always do in this way, but I felt that I need to understand each steps of it to to design a better drug or to find a better solution. And the turning point came during 2012 when I was doing this research, when I heard Steve Jobs Stanford lecture that don't be trapped by dogma. Like I just got really fed up of like the well-defined path that generally we have as a when we do masters and then do PhD, then we do postdoc, then we come back and take a faculty position and or go for a industry research. I was I felt like, who has defined this? Do I really have to take that course? And the unfortunately, like with all due respect to all my all academic, I have been in academic position for a long time, but just publishing papers never inspired me. I just got suffocated at that, and I wanted to do the research which makes an impact, which makes an impact in the society, or which can be translated and make a difference in people's life. And for that, it's important that you follow, you have the courage to follow your heart and whatever you are convinced of. And I really became restless when I read this quote of Dhirubhai Ambaniji, that if you don't build your dream, someone else will hire you to help them build theirs. And I was really, really greedy. I said, no, I'm just not allowing anybody else to, I'm not allowing it myself to build someone else's dream. I have, because I had a dream to make a cancer patient smile. So let's come back to the work, sorry, the discovery that I had made during that time, the engineered protein that goes through the cell membrane and carries things inside. And that's when BIG grant came. And before BIG grant came, when I discovered this, of course, certain circumstances again led to this decision to take up BIG grant. Because when I was in Kyoto and I discovered this and I had a hypothesis, it was rejected by the team there. But I was convinced that my hypothesis is right. So I quitted my job there and came back to India, and I took a break of almost a year to just understand what I really want to do in life, because I was somehow convinced that I didn't want to join an academic position. And that time, BIG happened. BIG is Biotechnology Ignition Grant, which is a very competitive grant by BIRAC, DBT. Maybe most of you know about it. And that is a grant given to individuals, even if you don't have a academic position, but if you have a breakthrough idea, if you have an idea that can be translated and you can bring out a product in market, then BIG scheme is the grant is the one that you can choose to apply for. And it's wonderful because I had this idea. I wanted to prove my hypothesis, and I didn't want to join academic positions. So BIG was a blessing for me. And with that 50 lakhs grant, I could prove my hypothesis. And that was the beginning of forming CyCa. So in 2016, I got the grant, and I took a year to prove my hypothesis. And in 2017, I formed CyCa. And in CyCa, what do we do? With this, the technology that we have discovered, that it's a molecule that is kind of, you can say, it's like a FedEx for molecular cargoes. You can deliver anything, or you can carry anything inside the cells, inside the living cells, or you can deliver any molecular cargo inside living cells. So with this technology can be applied for so many different things that we have explored over last 2 years, and we are very soon launching 2 of our products. One is it's a very non-toxic and non-viral delivery system for CRISPR-Cas9. For all gene editing researchers, we are able to deliver the whole gene editing toolbox, and which has applications in genome editing based therapeutics, etc. And it can be also used to, it's a simple and easy to use live cell imaging research reagent. So these 2 products are in the research reagent market. But the main important thing for which I started off or have gone through the whole path is we are able to reduce the dose of cancer drugs, and so that by 90% dose, we are able to reduce the dose by 90%, so that side effects are expected to be less. So we want to make the cancer drugs safer and better. And we are also able to deliver antibiotics through the drug resistant strains of bacteria, so that we can bring back the old antibiotics into action. So these are the four different verticals that we are working in CyCa. And this is all based on the technology that is developed by we arrived at in last few years. And then I would tell how it looks like a day in life of an entrepreneur. As you can see here, it is a roller coaster journey. Every day I get butterflies and stomach feelings. Most often, yes, I feel excited. Wow, this is amazing. This is working, and this proof of concept we have done, or this is we found it is non-toxic even at very high dose, and it's working fine. But after just few moments, something else will come up, and maybe some application gets rejected, or some funding agency has some other questions, or some other challenges about the team, about so many other things comes up, and then you go down, you go low, and it's like a up and down feeling. Whatever this slide tells, it's actually true. That's how I'm sure all the entrepreneurs feel in this way. And the most challenging aspect that I have felt is it's a day in the life of a single founder, because I have been a single founder and I'm a technical founder. So the to-do list has almost everything. You almost have to do everything, right from like seeing if something has been delivered or not, or the scientific part, if the experiment has worked or not, of the investor, if you have to reply the investor if whatever questions they have. Mainly, but my job is to lead the R&D of our team of CyCa, and I'm looking for into the fundraising part, managing collaborations, and manage the day-to-day operations. So far, because I have been a single founder, but soon my co-founder will join, and hopefully I'll have a better time. There are have been different opportunities and challenges. I won't say that what I love doing or what I hate doing, but I'm taking all those things as challenges which I'm not very comfortable of, and that is one of them is finances, and for very simple things that you keep running behind people, boosting their ego to get very simple things done. Those it's very challenging for me. And the most challenging aspect has been to team building. I have been struggling in that, to be honest. But what I really love is the developing the scientific strategy part, the business strategy part, and explaining my work to others and convincing them, even if they're very hard to be convinced, but I love doing that. During this phase, the entrepreneurial journey, because when I was a researcher, I felt that I really love just doing research, sitting back of the bench or in a corner. But after I accidentally entered this path, I felt that I really enjoy discussing my work or convincing or explaining it to others and discuss with others and talking to people. And this is where the networks come. It is not always that you don't have to take networking in a bad way. It's about what you can do for others instead of what you are going to be benefited from them, because that automatically comes. So then let's come to the three key lessons that I have got. One is like building a functional team is really vital, and you have to communicate effectively. That is the key for almost everything in life. in your personal or professional career, everywhere. And as an entrepreneur, I would say, if you want to build a product, build it along with your customer. That's one of the key lessons that I have got. And for this journey, you don't for skills and qualifications, I'm sure if you all are very intelligent enough, it's just a Google search away. You can find all what are the schemes present, what are the grants available, what are the workshops. But the most important thing that I have felt which is important is emotional intelligence. You need to be, the empathy is very important. You need to be have self-control or self-confidence, but at the same time humility is very important. You need to be adaptable to different situations, and motivated. You have to be self-motivated, and building relationships, building bonds. That is because you can't do everything alone. You need a whole team of people, whole network, to reach wherever you want to reach. With this, let me tell about what are the three things I did differently, because I don't want to say the do's and don'ts, what you should do or what you shouldn't do, because life is unique. Your career, your life is unique, and everyone has different challenges. And even if I tell you that don't do these mistakes, but I'm sure you are going to do the same mistakes or different mistakes, and you are going to learn your own lessons from that. But what I did differently is I really pursued whatever I believed in, even if it meant that I was out of the academic job application or whatever it was, or in many different ways. But I just pursued whatever I was convinced of, and I was always fearless, and I don't accept defeat very easily. So in this context, I would just make one point, that whenever I want to take a difficult decision, I ask myself, am I going to die in this process? If I don't die, I just do it. Because if you die, then it's over. You can't do anything after that. But if you don't die, almost everything, virtually everything can be done again, build again. So that fearlessness, that courage is important to reach to your goal in every possible ways. So what I would say is, entrepreneurship is not a career option. Rather, it's a mindset to make an impact, to make a difference in people's life. And if you make that, if you are mindful to the taxpayers' money, if you are mindful that your professional or your knowledge, by your knowledge, you are going to make somebody's life better, that the society comes back and tells you that, look, your science has made my life better. And that's when I think that success with values is important. And whatever career path you choose, but if you are making an impact, making a difference, that is important, according to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nusrat, for that very inspiring presentation and for telling us about your personal journey. We will take questions on this, but first we will hear from our second guest speaker today. I want to extend a very warm welcome to you, Nelson. Nelson graduated from the IIT Madras with an integrated master's degree in biotechnology. In 2010, he co-founded Sea6 Energy, which is a company that focuses on developing technologies to produce large quantities of offshore biomass and then converting that biomass into various products like food ingredients, biomaterials, biofuel. He'll be telling you more about this, I'm sure. Nelson currently leads a multidisciplinary team at Sea6 Energy. He was also featured in a special mention in the Science and Green Tech category in Forbes India 30 Under 30 list 2018. So over to you, Nelson. Please take it away.
Thank you, Shreya. First, I must say, Nusrat, that was a really inspiring talk. And what you expressed are things which I'm sure every entrepreneur has gone through. The graph which you showed going up and down, that's certainly a path of life. Most people just see the successes at the end of it, but really it's the mindset to make it happen which is crucial. So what I thought I'd show is a little bit about Sea6 Energy, and let me just share my screen. So hello everyone. My name is Nelson, and I'm here to talk a bit about my journey on being an ocean farmer. Uh, an ocean farmer, and the company we have is called C6 Energy. And what we really do at C6 is grow seaweed. This uh, funny looking piece of plant is seaweeds. Most of you may not have seen it. I certainly didn't know anything about it when I almost 11 years ago. Uh, and but this is the same thing which goes into your ice cream, your toothpaste, and almost all of you would have come in touch of it without having an idea of where it comes from. And when I talk about seaweed farming, we're really now, we may wonder how it looks like. So here's a picture from Indonesia near Bali, and this is how a seaweed farm looks like. This is actually all underwater, and you can see this person over here who's kind of halfway in the water wading around, and he's got like hectares upon hectares of seaweed growing in the sea. And that's the beautiful part about seaweed. Growing it is so simple. You just take a piece of seaweed and put it in the water and leave it for about 6 weeks, and it goes to 4 times its size. And then you repeat the process over and over again, and you have a continuous crop. And if you think about it, you don't need to pump water because it's growing in the sea, and there's plentiful sunshine. So all you have, I mean, there's really no input cost. You just have to put a piece of seaweed in the sea and it grows. And there's a catch though, it's quite labor intensive. Today, the way it's being done is that it's tied on small pieces of rope and then laid out into the sea. And once it's laid out into the sea, you again sit back and wait for 6 weeks and it grows larger in size. While the process is very simple, it takes a lot of people and a lot of effort to actually do this work in the sea. To give an idea, think about doing the same work you do on land, but while you're in a swimming pool. Every bit of work is amplified as much. So that's where we came in 2010. And what we thought was, hey, there is this, there is ocean farming is possible. India has a lot of ocean. How can we make a difference and bring all this seaweed farming into India? I mean, as India, we're we have a very high population density. We don't have as much land per person as compared to other countries. So how can we make use of the ocean to actually generate more biomass? That was really our vision. And thinking from that side and seeing, okay, hey, there's so much of labor involved. What we thought was, hey, we actually developed a whole set of equipment to actually enable the mechanized harvesting of seaweeds in the sea. So we actually grow these seaweeds in small bits of tubular nets, which you can see over here. And the seaweed kind of grows out of these nets. And as the seaweeds grow out of these nets, there's a set of machinery which we've actually patented and harvest and seed and harvest in the sea completely offshore. So there's absolutely no need to come back on land. And the way this is done is that all this equipment which you see over here is actually part of a piece of equipment, what we call the sea combine. This is the workboat, or we call it the sea combine because it's the equivalent of the combine harvester on the ocean. So hence the sea combine. So the sea combine is actually able to go out into the sea, have all this set of equipment, and actually farm large bits of ocean area completely offshore. This picture is taken near an Indonesian facility in near Bali in Indonesia. And that's really our dream. How can we actually take farm square kilometers of ocean? And that's what brought the whole team together. What do we do with the seaweeds? What we actually do is, seaweed I find is a almost a miracle biomass because there's so much you can do with it. For example, one of our first products, what we developed was an agri product. So a certain extract of the seaweed, when processed in a certain way, actually helps improve the yields of crops in agriculture. and that's one of our products. Then it can go into bioplastics, where you make completely biodegradable plastics all from seaweed. It can goes into a whole host of organic chemicals. It goes into food, like I said, it goes into ice creams, and even finally into biofuel. But if you see this interesting graph over here, today there's a certain price of seaweed at which certain products are viable. Like at today's price of seaweed, which you see over here marked in red, what is possible is you can make cosmetics, and lot of people here may be aware of that. You can make food ingredients like hydrocolloids, which goes into your ice creams, your milkshakes, and you can make agriculture products like what we do, where you actually make plant health improvement products from the seaweed. But if we want to go into bioplastics, basically replace every plastic bag with a completely biodegradable, disposable one made with zero fossil fuel, what we need to do is actually lower the price of seaweed. We need to come from here all the way down to the star at the bottom. And as we keep lowering the price of seaweed, what we see is more and more products open up. We can go into bulk feed products. We can go into bioplastics and renewable chemicals. And really, as we keep lowering the price of seaweed, we can even make biofuel happen. And when we talk about biofuel, really a factor to consider is how much scale we need to actually produce biofuel. It's not about producing a few liters at the right price. It's actually producing enough to run an entire nation. So, for instance, if we wanted to replace all of India's motor fuel with biofuel, you need an area roughly the size of Tamil Nadu in the ocean. If you want an area the size of Tamil Nadu inside India, which where they're already kind of maxed out on land area, that's not going to be possible. But on the ocean, we still have so much space left that it is actually possible to farm all that, because the sun is still falling, whether it's on the sea or on land. And we certainly have a lot of water on the ocean. What's always been missing is how can we take it and do it with the right technology. So that's really where we've been focusing in. The main verticals, what we have is, one is the seaweed farming vertical, where we actually grow a lot of seaweed on the sea. We have the proprietary equipment to grow lots of volumes of biomass. And then the second vertical is really taking these large volumes of biomass and then processing it into a variety of products. And combining these two is really the essence of what C6 Energy is. To talk a bit about our journey, and I think that's really something close to heart, because when we started this, the journey started almost in 2009. I'm very lucky to have a bunch of very extremely capable co-founders. We are 4 co-founders, and all of us look at one part of the business. And we met together in 2009, and on a completely different topic. At that point, if I remember, we were working on synthetic genomics in bacteria, on E. coli, and we were all doing our biotechnology back then. And with that project, we had gone to we had actually participated in a competition called IGM and won a silver medal there in 2009. And that's when the team got together. And really, while we were in 2009, that was just 1 year before I graduated, and we had our final year ahead of us. And I was thinking to myself, hey, we're going to be working on some project in college for my integrated master's thesis. And I don't know how much of an impact it would be. And that's when we met an alumnus of us, Shri Kumar, who's also one of our founders, who really said, hey, I have this problem where we really want to make India self-sufficient in energy. Can we make biofuel from the sea? And we said, hey, it's not like we're doing anything else super interesting. This looks like a really good idea. Let's try it out. I mean, what's there to lose? And in 2009 to 2010, we really looked at microalgae, which is, microscopic plants growing in the sea. And we've made these designs on crazy tanks which would be floating in the sea, and we grow a lot of them and actually make large volumes of biofuel. But all that energy and enthusiasm, after 1 year when we did all our calculations, it turned out, hey, it doesn't work out. Why should we bother doing this if the basic calculations don't work out? And when we were almost about to graduate, and when I say graduate, some of us had offers for PhDs in other countries. Some of us had job offers in companies. And then we thought, hey, let's think of seaweed. Seaweeds could be a good option because it has all the advantages of microalgae at a much lower cost. And guess what? It's not like the seaweed is uh, growing in a far off country like Japan or China. It actually grows right in our backyard in Tamil Nadu. And that was the day when we took a train and went from Chennai all the way to Rameshwaram to actually take a look at what seaweed is all about. And really, before that, we had no idea on seaweed. And when we saw that, we were stunned. Hey, the whole industry started almost 50 years back, and there's been no innovation in it. So let's get into it, and let's try making biofuel from this. So that's when we started the company in 2010. And starting a company is quite an eventful experience, right from choosing the name to actually building the team. And we had a great ride in 2010. So we developed all these great designs. We developed technologies on biofuels. And the looking back, when I see how it is, it's almost as if at that time, oil was at $100 a barrel, and everybody was talking about biofuels. But then slowly, somewhere along the line, oil just dropped, and the price went to, if I remember, $27 a barrel, and nobody really cared for biofuel anymore at that point. I mean, saving the planet and all is good, but if no one's interested in it at the point when you want to solve the problem, then what are you going to do? And that was really for us a major pivot point. I mean, what we knew, hey, at some point we can't be relying on fossil fuel all the time. But that time may be 20 years away, and no one's going to, we need to survive despite that. And we looked for different applications for seaweed, and that's when it hit us, hey, there's this agri product which could come from seaweed. Let's focus on that. And you can see slowly in 2013, we moved to Bangalore. In 2014, we did started our trials with agriculture institutes. And by 2015, we had our product patents in Agrogain, which is our flagship product, which we sell. And that 2015 is also a major year where we signed up our first customer, and that's Mahindra and Mahindra. So it was a big deal for us, having a big name like Mahindra coming in and working with us and taking our product and actually selling it to farmers. And that really was what shifted us from a pure research organization to actually one where we were generating revenues and making money and actually moving forward. So that in 2015 we also got some funding from Tata Capital, and that really helped us boost our work even more. And that is how we went from India to actually establishing a subsidiary in Indonesia. We set up our first factory in Indonesia in 2017, and we even built our the C Combine, which I showed you. That's completely built in Indonesia with an excellent team there. So it's been a wild ride for us all the way through. It's taken a long time, almost 10 years, but it's really something we are very proud of. We've had our ups and downs. We've had great people join in. We've had great people leave us as well, but we've somehow stuck through, all with the vision of making really farming the oceans and taking agriculture to the next level. to talk about, so, I was thinking to give an idea of what are the roles we play as a founder. And it's really hard because I completely sympathize with Nusrat's list, to do everything, because really it's huge, the number of things which have to be done. And over time, we're really lucky to get good people to come and take away a lot of our responsibilities, but the magnitude of the responsibilities also increase as we move forward. So how I see, so officially my title is Director of Engineering, because I look after a lot of the equipment and the mechanization which goes into farming of seaweeds on the ocean. That involves farm design and uh, building, even all the way working with the team to actually get the ship built. And if you think about it, coming from a biotechnology background to go into a team where you're working completely on mechanical design was really a big jump for me. But in there, I think our network helped us a lot, because we found extremely great mentors in the field of mechanical engineering and also in manufacturing. And these guys really helped us to build stuff which I had not even learned in college. Yeah. In fact, the one thing I learned from C6 was that you can learn anything. The only limitation to not learning something is if you think that, oh, it's not possible to learn that. So that's the engineering side. And as you can see, it's just one small part of what we do. The most important thing would be developing people. I mean, building a team capable of working and making sure the team is happy to do what they want, and not just about the team working for you, it's also about the company working for the team. How do we make sure that every person who is in company, who has given their life for C6, is actually able to express their full potential, is actually able to grow in their career? I mean, I want a team where at the end of the day, after 10 years, we are all like, man, we had a great ride in C6 and I'm so happy we did this. And it's really developing that kind of people, and really empowered people who can make bold decisions and literally change the world. That's the kind of people we look to develop. The other parts are strategy and planning. Of course, we have to plan for things, how things go on a week from now, months from now, a year from now. And all this planning really goes into what is the work we do today. And to help do that work, processes and systems. I cannot emphasize enough how processes and systems uh, really help us, because it helps take all the routine stuff and make it in a certain way so that there's minimal mistakes happening, so that you can focus on the areas where really you can get maximum bang for the buck. Now, the last one, admin roles, which is as a founder, there'll be plenty of things to be done apart from just okay. So there'll be plenty of stuff to be done apart from just the exciting stuff of building technology. There's also finance. There's also signing documents and licenses and a whole bunch of stuff. But it is taken as part of the stride, because we have the one goal of actually making large square kilometers of farm happen. And that's really our goal at C6, how to farm large areas of ocean, make it possible, and, uh, you know, uh, really change the world. And my message for all, budding future world changers, and it's not necessarily entrepreneurship, it's in all fields really, which you would like to work, is I think today we've had great sessions from everybody talking about the importance of networking. And I thought I'd at least share my bits on it, because like many of the questions we had asked, I myself was one who wasn't really great at networking or really talking to people. In fact, I would always see these bunch of people thinking, hey man, there's these guys who talk so well and get stuff done, and to do the same thing, I have to really work really hard to make something happen. But that was really back in college. And now I think the word networking is may intimidate some people, but really all it's about is making friends. If I have a bike and I want to get it fixed, I'll call up a friend and ask, hey, where do I fix this bike? Do you know someone good? And he gives me a recommendation. And that's who I go and give it to. I didn't have to go through Google and find out 100 people and get reviews, check reviews, and then go it. It saved me a whole lot of time to actually go and get it done there. And similarly, it may not be a bike. It may be you want to get a video done or you want to get a license approved. And all these things, the more people you make friends with, the more you can actually access them. And the thing about making friends is you don't make friends to get benefits. You make friends so because you care for them, you give them value, and a lot of ideas have been talked about. But really, the more value you can give to the people you want to be friends with, if I can help him out, maybe with a piece of information I know, maybe with a contact I know, in some fashion, that's really when you build a long-term trusted relationship. And it is these kind of relationships which help out really when the rubber hits the road. So yeah, I think it's not just about talking to a few people once in a while. It's really about making meaningful relationships with the people you care about for a long time. Please do that as a first step. Someone asked, what's the good first step to be done? I would say, please, say at least reach out to your seniors, reach out to your alumni who would be more than happy to help you. I mean, I know I've made so many mistakes in college. I've done so many stupid things, and uh, I would be so happy to help out people who were in the same boat as I am. And I'm sure everybody in your college or in your network who went through the same things as you would be more than happy to help. You just have to take the step and reach out. So with that, I'll end my talk. And yeah, I hope that gave a good idea.
Thank you, Nelson. We definitely learned a lot about seaweed today, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. We will now take some questions from our audience, and for both Nusrat and Nelson. So first, handing over to you, Lakshmi, for sharing if there are any live questions.
Sure, Shreya. So if any of you want to answer your questions verbally, that's okay. We just raise your virtual hand like we asked you to, and then we would just unmute you, and you could unmute yourself and quickly ask your questions. We request you to keep it brief and to the point, so we can hear as many voices. So we will take a couple of questions for the Q&A box, Shreya, and maybe we'll give some time for the attendees to volunteer to ask their questions.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so the first question is from Vanessa, and I think it applies to both of you. How do you ensure that everyone in your team is as motivated as you towards your goal? So maybe Nelson will ask you first.
No, that's a good question. And first, I think you hire the best people who share your vision. That's number one, because some things you can't. You want the best people to come in who are already at a certain level. And the second thing is to continuously talk your vision and also live up to it. Because it's an empty vision if I'm just talking about it and I really don't care about it at the back of my mind. That's very hypocritical. But if I really believe it and it comes out in everything I do and we keep talking about it, then really everyone shares it. And it's not just me taking credit for doing everything, also sharing the credit with everyone, so everyone really feels the ownership about achieving that vision. That's really key.
Thank you. And Nusrat, would you like to add something?
I think Nelson made a great point, and what I would just add is what I feel is you need to lead by example. That maybe keeps them motivated, because if we just want them to do and we don't show them that that is what we believe in and that's what we are working for every day, then maybe they lose motivation. But I have been struggling in all of those because like as Nelson said, you need to find someone who shares your vision. That is the key. If they don't share, like you can't teach attitudes. You can teach skills, but you can't teach how they perceive things, their attitude.
So, and I'll add something here. All our best people have come through our network. You know, it's really hard to get somebody uh, great. I mean, it's very much more difficult to get someone very good through, like a Naukri or Monster.
Thank you,
Right.
Nusrat and Nelson. The next question is something that is, I think, on the forefront of many of our minds now. Janvi is asking, did the pandemic affect you, and what did you learn or realize during this period in your journey? So maybe Nusrat, if you want to answer this.
I think what I learned is it's so difficult to like when it just started. I was completely paranoid. I thought like how I wish I was working on something computational that the work would go on, because our work, everything is in the lab. If the lab is shut off, nothing works. And so all of our milestones have got delayed by 6 months. The funding has got delayed by 6 months. It has been disastrous. But yeah, because it has happened for everybody, we are slowly picking up on all those. So it has been difficult on my side.
Thanks, Nusrat. And Nelson, what has your
Yeah.
experience been?
Definitely, it has put a lot of things, out of track. And there's certain operations, which you can do working from home, and maybe designing stuff is one of them. But certainly, work from the lab, work in the factory. These are things which uh, really have to go on, and even sales in the field. And for us, the concern is always how do we take care best of our people while they go and do this work, and we do everything possible so that they're as safe uh, while doing it. At the same time, we have to manage. There's no point complaining about it because it won't help. Uh, but has things slowed down? Yes, there's certainly been impacts to business. There's been impacts to funding. But at the same time, it's been something which we're very lucky that we've been able to get through without having to, make any major changes. So it's, I think we've been lucky, unlike many startups.
Very true. Thank you. The next question is for Nelson. Shalini is asking, what do you look for in a person you hire, since it must be difficult to find someone with an interest in seaweed to begin with? So what are the factors you look for?
Yeah, but so since you're, the company has so many things, right, from accounts to making products from seaweeds, and even in the factory, it's not just about seaweed, but I think it's uh, a lot of it is to do about the character of the person, because trust is really, really important in a lot of what we do. And this is something even I learned during college, during my placements. Maybe grades were important, what we did were important, but after a certain point, it's your experience which speaks for what you do, and not just your experience, but also the kind of person you are. The way I look at it is this: when this person comes onto my team, will he actually benefit the team? And one metric I always use while hiring the best people is that they should know more than me. Because if I am hiring somebody who knows less than me, then what more is the team learning? So we always make sure we get people who have more skills and can add more into the team, so that the team as a whole becomes stronger.
Thank you, Nelson. So we have a lot of students in our audience today, and one question is for both of you, do your companies train interns, and can students work with you to learn more maybe about entrepreneurship or how the company functions? Either of you can go first.
So we do take interns, but as much, because for me it's also about giving back to the community as much as uh, because the real thing, we want to get as many interns as possible, but even as a company, we have a limit because really taking on an intern is training a lot of people, and we want to do as much justice on that as possible. But yes, we always welcome interns so that both they learn a bit from what we do, and we are also able to get some work done.
Yes, I have been taking interns before, like little longer, for longer duration, like 6 months, 4 to 6 months for our experimental work. But post-COVID, I have stopped taking interns for experimental part because Venture Center is not allowing interns to work in shared facilities by themselves. We always have to accompany, one of us have to accompany them all the time. And if we accompany, then we have to pay double the price, which is not feasible for us at the moment. But I have recently taken 2 of the interns from IIT Chennai, but that is for the helping us in business strategy and some financial work, some content development work.
Thank you. We have a question from Harsha, I think, which will touch a lot of people's hearts. Where were thoughts like, what if this does not work out? Will I reach where I want to? And if you had these doubts, how did you tackle them? Nusrat, if you want to go first.
So that's a thought that comes every day, that gives a butterfly in stomach feeling all the time. But what I feel is like the technology might fail, but people don't fail. You always know how, if you have the right mindset, if you are really aiming to get to your goal, you will find a way to make it work. That feeling, that challenge would always be there, but as you know, you can always find another way. So never give up. That's my mantra.
Yeah, what I would say, and this is something someone I respect a lot told to me, was that you take as much risk as you can sleep on at night. What I mean by that is when I started out of college, and uh, the younger you are, the easier it is to start because, hey, okay, you can do something, and even if it fails after 3 years, you can still, with the huge experience you gain, you can go back and do something again. There's no today, at least in today's world, there's no stigma of a failed startup if you're going back and getting a job. But where it gets really hard, and I know people who face this, is that you have a family, you have children, and then you have to take a call on really, okay, should I start a company now? Because for sure, if you're expecting money in 2 years, you can forget about that. That's not going to happen. If you're taking something, it's going to take, it's really in for the long haul. You need to plan for like some 5 years. You're going to be, if you're lucky, you may get something in 2 years. I mean, I really wish for every entrepreneur to get that. But if you are banking on that and starting this journey, that's going to be really hard. So if you can prepare yourself that, hey, I'm going to wait for this, long haul, and I can take that risk, and I'm willing to do that because I really believe in my vision. Then once you've made that resolve, then that's when you should step in.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions about startup funding here. Prerna wants to know, how do we arrange for the initial capital to chip in when starting the business? And we have another question about how do you, from Nilanshu, about how do you manage to get startup funding and still get to be a major stakeholder? So Nelson, if you want to answer either of these.
Okay. That's a good question. How do you become a major shareholder with the funding? See, getting funding in the beginning is very difficult. Usually, it's from a network of friends, families, and fools who usually fund you through the first part. And things like big really help because you get a stream of money which is not almost, you don't have to give out too much equity. It allows you to uh, try out a new idea, and then, okay, if it fails, you can go out and do what you were doing before. So that really helps. And I think you should really try and approach all these sources of funding so that you've proved your idea to a certain extent. Because once you've got that certain proof of concept and you're actually, hey, this, it's not just an idea, I've proved something behind it, then getting some sort of funding and then saying, look, if I'm willing to get you in as a part of what I do, but and this is something which every person who funds is also aware of, that if the founder does not have enough equity in the beginning, then they're going to lose interest very soon. And if they're going to lose interest, then what's going to happen with the money which is invested in the company? So I think it's about, I think to that question, the answer is, with the least amount of money, can you come up with a proof of concept? And uh, then with that, look for investment. I mean,
Nusrat,
you can.
Yeah, so in my case, I started with a BIG grant. So I have been maybe very lucky to get that. And it depends on the kind of work that you are doing, or the kind of startup that you are doing, because say in our kind of work, it's a long gestation period. Like the product takes some years to come to market. So I don't know how long and what percentage of equity I would be having after a few years, because when you go for higher rounds, the Series A rounds, and then followed by that the bigger financial rounds, I don't know how I will have the highest shares of belonging to me. But at the same time, what many of my mentors have suggested me or told me is, see, if you have a company with higher value and you have a low percentage of that bigger or high valued company, is better than having the 100% of a low valued company. So you don't have to be too much worried that you have very less percentage. But Nelson has mentioned the other point, that if you don't have enough percentage, then the founder loses interest, then people would also lose interest in that. So it's a mix, it's a balance of both. But to start with, maybe you should look for the funding agencies. Like, I think now we have a lot of different schemes from Government of India side. So I think those will help.
thank you both, Nelson and Nusrat. We'll maybe take a couple more questions and then wrap up. Okay, Soumya wants to know, what are the key criteria in choosing your co-founders, and how do you prevent fallout within this core team? So I guess, Nelson, this applies to you.
Well, that's an extremely good question, because a lot of startups face this issue. It's not like we've not had founders leave us. We were 5 people in the beginning, and a good friend left us. We're still good friends, and circumstances in life, led to that divergence. But one thing I would advise everybody who goes into this with a partner is to make sure you have arrangements right in the beginning, when everyone is in great terms, to take care of issues when fallouts happen. There are standard mechanisms, like, for example, if you're splitting the shares, you don't split it completely in the beginning. There can be a vesting period. You could say, hey, we're going to stick for 3 to 5 years, and for every year you come in, you get a certain amount of shares. So that way, if somebody leaves in between, it's not like he or she is, with a large percentage of the company, which leads to difficult relationships later on. But while selecting the first set of founders, it's almost an art form of finding a friend who you trust. I don't think there is a formula, and because if there is, I don't know anyone who's gotten it. It is a very difficult one, but at the same time, finding the right person in the beginning to go through all the difficulties which you will face in the long journey of your company, that is really worth their weight in gold. So it's something extremely important and something which you should do as much as possible to find out.
Thank you, Nelson, for that insight. We have a question for Nusrat. An anonymous attendee wants to know, is it your knowledge or your belief in yourself that made you reach where you are now? And according to you, which is more important?
I think knowledge is important too, but what worked for me or what has taken me so far is the conviction on the goal that I want to solve this problem. I want to make life better for people because I have seen my dad suffering and I've seen the whole family suffering. So that has taken me through.
Thank you, Nusrat. We'll take one final question and wrap up, and that is from Janvi. Did either of you have, when you started, or do you still have a plan B? So, Nelson?
you always may, well, I would say as much as possible. You can't always say it, but as much as possible, you have to make plan for a plan B, plan C, uh, as much as you can. Many times you have only one plan to stick to, and then you try your best to do that. But it really depends on the stage where you are and what you have available. But for sure, there will be times where you have to take difficult decisions, and courage is very important in that time. So I don't know if I've answered the question well, but as much as possible, plan backups. But there will be times where you can't, and then you just, grin and bear with it.
Thank you. And Nusrat, do you have a plan B?
I think I echo with Nelson on that regard. And in terms of the company's work or the technology, say I started with the passion of working for oncology. And but yeah, as I went through it, I realized how difficult it is and how long it takes and what all it takes to reach there. So I had to have to devise a or find a product that can come faster in the market. So maybe you can call that as a plan B. But if you ask me that, okay, startup is my plan A, and then if this, God forbid, fails or something, what is plan B for my life? That I haven't I haven't thought of. As I say, like you will gain a lot of experience through this, and you will always find another way to contribute, to make an impact. That is my goal. If I can't make it this way, I'll find another way to do.
Srinath, there's a person from the audiences. Srinath, would you like to ask your questions? Please unmute yourself. Srinath, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please. Okay, I think we've just momentarily lost Srinath. Shreya, let me just quickly share the screen.
Okay. We have had a lot of questions today, and it wasn't possible to cover all of them in the time we had. But we have noted your questions. They will be on record, and we can also share them with our guest speakers after the session is over. So thank you so much to both our panelists. It was a wonderful session today. And with this, we will wrap up this session, and we hope you found this useful. We encourage you all to visit our website, where we have many more career-related resources, including this book called Disha, which provides detailed information about over 20 different career paths, and it is free to download. Also, please check out our podcast, India Bio Speaks, the first season of which is dedicated to career development. In fact, our latest episode, which was released only last week, discusses the art and science of networking, and we invite you to check it out. And please subscribe and share if you enjoy it. The links are on your screen. We'll also put them in the chat window. So we hope you found this session useful, and we would love to hear your feedback. We will have another CYC Crafting Your Career webinar soon. which we will announce in the coming month. And you can save your spot using this link. In the meantime, stay connected, stay informed, stay safe. See you soon on another session on crafting your career in science. So goodbye from us at India Bioscience, from our speakers, Nusrat and Nelson. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Shreya. If the speakers could stay on a few seconds, maybe we could take a little bit of a souvenir snapshot to mark this moment of collaboration. So, say seaweed. That all. There you go.
Thank you, both of you. It was wonderful. Yeah, Lakshmi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Nusrat, it was really amazing to hear your story, I must say. You know, you speak with so much passion. It's really very, very nice to hear.
Thank you, Nelson.